Hey, what's up, guys? It's Chase, and welcome to another exciting episode of the ELAV8 podcast. Today, Sam and I welcome guest Jonathan Sims to discuss his journey as an indigenous filmmaker. We cover everything from how production companies are exploiting tribes, as well as we touch on how important it is to maintain the integrity of the culture being presented on film.
Because you said something at the very beginning of your explanation that media was very taboo, right? And that you only saw one other person that was native within the film industry. So I guess my first question is, has it transformed?
Yes, but a very few amount of them. I think that right now, in terms of creation, our native people are probably in our golden era of creating media.
ELAV8, what's happening, everybody? Jason and I are here with a very special guest today, the one and only Jonathan Sims. Jonathan is from the Acoma tribe. I'm going to let him do the longer introduction, but he's also he is a independent filmmaker, production person, editor, long-standing freelancer in New Mexico, and also now educator and teacher at the college level. Okay, before we get into Jonathan, though, because he's got an awesome story. I just have to ask you guys, are you dealing with this at all? Are we into Wall Street bets? Are we following what's happening here?
I took my eye off the ball for literally 1 week. I decided I was going to go home to Texas to visit my family. So begrudgingly, I missed this move. I was a part of the one in 2021, but I missed the 2024 run. So I'm a little ashamed to admit that.
Jonathan, are you doing the Wall Street bets thing, Roaring Kitty? Do you even know what I'm talking about?
No. I'm not involved in Wall Street.
To be honest, you might be involved in this because this is anti-Wall Street. There is a guy leading the Wall Street revolution called Roaring Kitty on Twitter, is putting out some of the best marketing I have seen literally in the last, I don't even know how long. He should be running most companies, but there is a thing building. I'm curious if anyone thinks it's going to go anywhere, but you guys may not be into it. I'm very excited to see it back because stocks have been very boring for the last couple of years since this has been happening. All right. We'll leave it there because I do actually want to get to our guest, because I met Jonathan on what was easily the most interesting mobile filmmaking journey I've ever been on. I wish Tony was here too, but the long story short, I got to meet Jonathan authentically at Acoma. He was my guide there and took me in. I met the kids. And we taught them mobile filmmaking. But what's fascinating about Acoma is they actually, when I got there, were very not into filmmaking at all. And so he has been part of a transition that's been happening in a lot of the native world, which is not only even accepting some of the aspects of technology to varying degrees, but then also combating, I think, what has been severe exploitation by many companies in the industry, and ideally taking their own stories, their own language, their own content back for themselves. So I'm going to stop talking for him. I just wanted to give the preamble, but Jonathan, the floor is yours. How would you talk about your path, with your background coming into filmmaking and what that, and also help educate some people who maybe aren't as familiar with some of the stuff I'm talking about the current state of things?
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Guati Halpa. My name is Jonathan Sims. I'm from the Pueblo of Acoma. We're out here in New Mexico, Breaking Bad land. We're about an hour outside of Albuquerque, west of Albuquerque. And, my Pueblo is, considered there's a couple of, other tribes out here, Taos and Hopi, and the three of us are often considered the oldest continuously inhabited places in the Western Hemisphere. It's a long-standing we've always thought about our people have been here, and some of the carbon dating goes back to like
Wow.
900, AD and stuff like that. Yeah, it's crazy. So we come from a very traditional community. There's 19 pueblos in New Mexico, and then there's the Navajo Nation and 2 Apache tribes. Our state is one of the few states where Native people are almost the majority. Almost, where you have the huge Hispanic population here, but we definitely have a huge presence in this community. And yeah, Sam came out one day, and the we have officials in the Pueblo, like we have a leadership, like a governor, lieutenant governor kind of thing, and they were like not into it. And they're like, go take care of this film guy. You're one of those film people too, and so met up with Sam, and we began talking, and it was I think I was kind of like, all right, whatever, too, like, all right. And then we started talking about Final Cut Pro, about editing, and I told him that I had been like Final Cut Pro certified since like version 1, and we that just started off this huge conversation. And little did I know Sam's involvement at the time with Final Cut, and then moving on to other stuff. And we went around, looked around the Pueblo, and yeah, a lot. I was able to share. Our Pueblo has, like I said, it's a very old community, but one of the things that we do have, and what is super interesting, especially for film folks, is that we have a very storied past in the sense of filmmaking. Quite literally, the Pueblos in New Mexico were the first films on the Edison film reel. So there's a film that's historically known in film school worldwide that you'll watch. It's called the Isleta Day School, and it's like 30-second clip of students coming out. It's kind of like along with Lumiere and the train. It's one of those early bits of film, and that was taken just outside Albuquerque. And Acoma has had many films through our area since way back. We also, Acoma has a film called Redskin that was there in 1941, I believe. It's also one of the first like 10 colored films ever made. And yeah, so we have this production history. My house, literally in the Pueblo, was built by a production company, or used by a production company. My grandfather built it, and there's an old movie, also in the 40s, I believe, called Sundown. And it had Gene Tierney and these huge, like big Hollywood actors at the time. And they turned our village, 'cause this is kind of going on to the exploitation thing. They turned our village into a African village. So they brought in like everything they needed, including African American actors to be the villagers, and put mosques on our village, and brought in zebras and like all the animals, and turned our community into just this huge production. And my house, this is kind of how I got into film, was used by their production office. And my grandpa, in payment, they paid him some money, but in payment, they gave him this folder of photos from the on-set photographer. And as a kid, I would go through these, like, it was like 100 or photos or so, and there was behind the scenes of all this movie. And I at that point just like fell in love with the idea of like all the films that happened in my front yard. And just been that's what spurred my love of film and production. And I fell into
it.
Yeah.
Can you also tell us a little bit about Sky City? Because you kind of buried the lead. Like, Sky City is a very unique place,
Yes.
to go through. And Maybe you can describe kind of there's the main pueblo, and then there's Sky City, and the two are very different.
So here's what our pueblo looks like. It sits upon a 300-foot mesa. There's no running water or electricity there. The Spanish came in 1680 or so, maybe a little bit earlier than that, and a big battle had ensued. So this is what the houses kind of look like. It's not the best photo resolution wise, but this is what our village looks like. And so you've had people come in since like I said, since the 1600s into our area. Here, I'll share another screen here.
Well, and I think part of this, right, is you have elders there year-round, largely praying, while the rest of the tribe is somewhere else. I think it might be like the way of life. I think is something that I think people will.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, and this goes very much in part of why our productions are limited, and also why this past of filmmaking has kind of changed how we do things in the Pueblo, is that in the Pueblo we have 5 men that are picked basically to be like religious leaders, and they're in prayer on top of the Pueblo. Think of them as like monks, and they're in prayer on top of the Pueblo for the entire year. They have to fast. They every day is a day filled with prayer. They farm. They live traditionally, and they have to be away from their family to do this. So there's no you can't have your wife up there or anything. It's you and these 5 guys, basically living up there. We have 5 other gentlemen that are picked as secular leaders. Like I said, the lieutenant governor, first lieutenant governor, second lieutenant. At the time that I met Sam, I had just come out of that role as being tribal secretary, which is kind of like the chief of staff. It'd be like the chief of staff to like a president or a governor or something like that. And in that position as secretary, I'd always known about our past as a filmmaking kind of location, but I didn't realize how many requests we get. And our Pueblo gets about anywhere between 50 to 60 requests a year for people to come up and film not only major motion pictures, smaller independent movies, documentaries, and all these things. And so what happens is, what a lot of people don't consider is that our Pueblo, even though it's a tourist location, people come and visit us, it's a living community still. And there's still a cultural calendar that happens within our Pueblo. And so we get all these requests, but we probably only really take on maybe 7 to 10 requests a year. And so if you don't fit within I'll go ahead and stop this, but if you don't fit within our cultural calendar, then the production probably won't happen. And so what happens is we try to get everybody in kind of in the end of July, end of November, and end of September. Those are kind of our 3 windows there. And we've unfortunately turned down everybody from Logan and tons of movies from 20th Century Fox and things like that, just because they don't fit in our calendar, and we're unwavering in that. And it's on the other end, we do get some films that come in. We do a lot of the PBS productions that are documentaries that are like one day small band docs. We let those guys come in because it's easier to manage. But you get some of these films coming in, and they want to take our hundreds of year old community. And one day I was on a set, and they were on a look. They came out to look at the Pueblo, and they were like, "Okay, we'll do a facade change to these 15 houses here." and I was like, "Are you kidding me? We have water cisterns. Our Pueblo has no running water. For hundreds of years, the only way to gather water was for the rainwater to be collected into these cisterns that are on the rock, basically holes in the sandstone. And I was up there, and the guys like they're like all the departments are doing their thing, and he's like, see this water here? We're gonna have to drain that, and we're gonna put a nice covering over it. Don't worry, we'll fill it up with very high quality water when we leave. And I was like, that's not how this works, man. And of course we turned that production down. They probably offered us, if you can believe, like initially they offered us only like 15 grand to use our pueblo in that manner. And afterwards, I told our leadership, like, no, like, either we can't do this or we got to ask for like a whole lot more money. When we bumped up, they bumped it up to like 25,000, which they thought was great. And I was like, these people are going to make millions and millions of dollars off of this, like let's ask for more. And at that point, they said no and went down to the pueblo down the road, which is probably like 30 miles down the road. And they got it done for like 30 grand or something like that, It wasn't the same visual that they were looking for, but it was pretty close. It wasn't on a mesa, but it still had those kind of adobe looking homes. And so that's production in my pueblo. And one of the things that we face as tribal people is, we've had forever these films come in and only see us as a backdrop. They want to have nothing to do with like our community. They have nothing to do. They want to have nothing to do with the story. They could care less about the historical aspect of the place that they're shooting in. That's part of the reason now that we are so, as a people, protective of our image. Sam knows this well. Acoma is one of these places. If you are walking around with a camera, like somebody's going to stop you and ask like what you're doing. Even myself as a community member, media was a very taboo thing growing up. And for me to become a journalist and a photojournalist initially was kind of a taboo thing to do. And it was really only until I started getting older and working within my government, my community, and doing little things like shooting the school play or, those little things that they would get out. They would see me out with my equipment and eventually kind of see my product. And it kind of was just at that for a long time. There's in the Pueblo right now, I'm very happy to say we have one other videographer who works in news, and it's like me and him. He's busy. He does the kind of the network stuff, basketball games, sports, but we're the only two guys kind of in this industry. And as the industry overall, I started my production craft in like 2007. And when I got out onto these big sets, we're talking at that time like Astronaut Farmer, Wild Hogs. Those are some of the big sets we worked on. And I could look around and there was nobody like me. There was not a single native person working. I maybe would see one other guy. He was a Video Village guy, and he would maybe be the only other guy I'd see for years. And it's amazing now, 2 decades later, almost, I've been freelancing for like 18 years. It's amazing now that almost 2 decades later, we have film schools, we have Netflix, Paramount, we have everybody in our backyard. And I'm trying to get our kids to realize that this is the industry that they can use their talents in. This also get them to realize as they become community partners and partners in managing our community, what it is to deal with media and what it is, because these kids are creating media now more than ever. And in a community where that was taboo only like 5 years ago. And it's been an interesting thing.
Yeah. Let you talk in a minute, but I want to give you just a little bit more context to some of the stuff that that I saw there and that Jonathan has been dealing with, because this is going to blow your mind, and then I'm going to want you to ask some questions. So when I actually got down there, right, as you know, we do a lot of the mobile filmmaking, right? This is about when worlds collide, right? So I come down there and I'm like, hey, I'm going to show these kids how anybody can make a movie, right? And so and like this, that's what iPhone filmmaking is about, right? Which is about democratizing filmmaking and make it possible for anyone to tell their stories. So of course I whip out my new iPhone, and the first thing one of the kids says to me is he just looks at me with my iPhone and is like, "Are you rich?" And it was this moment where I was just like, okay, so I need to adapt everything around, what I thought the paradigm actually was here, and then start to listen and pay attention to what's going on. Then I got a trip out to Sky City where there's literally no running water, and there's people who are radically opposed probably to everything I'm trying to bring into the tribe on its core fundamental. And so you have this like awareness of that. But then Jonathan tells me immediately after this story about how there have been companies who have been coming down and exploiting. So I won't speak for you, but like they want to preserve their language at Acoma, and there have been companies that have been coming down where the tribe has been forced to pay ungodly amounts of money to these companies, who then, and correct me if I'm wrong, they were paying them to document this language on video for the future. And then the company literally took that language and tried to sell it back to them after copywriting it. And this is the world, right? What? This is the insanity of this. And so, Jace, that's the backstory. And that's why, for me, it became very important to find a way to get the tools over so they could just use this for themselves, because it's insane. And then Jonathan can talk about what went down during COVID with their hospital and all of these other things. It's never been more important for tribes, in my opinion, to be in control of their own message. So Jonathan, I'll let you touch on that.
I have so many questions.
Yes. Yeah, no worries. No worries. We'll get to yeah, man. Sam is right, and you totally reminded. Like, so much has happened, and you totally reminded. I was like, yeah, I remember COVID. Yeah, what had happened during that time, and what when Sam had came in and kind of helped us build a media program there, basically. In the library, it was really because of this. And what he was alluding to is, there are companies out there. I won't name the company's name specifically, but there are companies out there that are prying on indigenous communities, not only in North America. I actually because of our situation, I gave a lecture to media makers in South America last year through NYU. They brought up all these people from the Amazon, Quechua speakers, Peru, and we warned them about these people because they're out there searching. So what happens is there's a couple of companies out there that sell themselves as language revitalization specialists. And so what they will do is come into your community, document the language, create you a dictionary, create you language materials so that you can use inside the school, with audio record stories, video record stories. And these are mostly languages that aren't written. So that's why that's who they kind of go after. There's if you want to look this up, you can look up the Lakota and Mr. Taken Alive. I think Will Taken Alive is his name. The same group that got a hold of them. And what happens is they come in and they document your community. And they do so using your own community's money, which is, there's grants out there called AD&A grants. they are grants that go from the federal education department to schools or communities. And a lot of these grant monies are in the millions. Like, say, for our grant, it was an initial payout of 800,000, and then we went after another $2 million in grants. What these companies come and do is, if the community isn't savvy enough in how it sets up its contracting, these communities come in and they say, "Oh, don't worry, we have the expertise to do that. Let us deal with the federal government contractors ourselves." And so what happens is you lose control of that money. And these people milked us they milked the federal government under our name, but the money bypassed the tribe and went directly to the company. And they did so for a total of $3.2 million
Wow.
over the course of like 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, I kind of got brought in as a kind of to scratch some itches. People were wondering, things weren't seeming right, and I got placed on the education board to kind of ask some questions. And the moment we started asking questions, it all unraveled. And they hadn't produced anything. What they sent us was quite literally your 8th grade Spanish vocabulary, like textbook that you get in any high school. And it was like erased the Spanish and our language kind of like just added in, and here they had sold us on the idea that we would be a partner in creating our own materials, so that our materials were our pueblo, like our own people. And that never happened. They just kind of gave us this like piece of junk. And then
they
the
also
next
try and copyright it.
Yes. So then the next thing was when we started receiving these their products back for that they're supposed to deliver our deliverables. We started to notice that they were all tagged with their company name and copywritten to that company. And we were like, well, wait. That wasn't part of the deal. The deal was that the Pueblo would keep ownership of all these materials. Because there's a thing in our Pueblo where some of these languages aren't spoken anywhere else in the world. We have language isolates in New Mexico where this group of 900 people are the only 900 people in the world that speak this language. And so they don't necessarily want it out on Babbel or like Rosetta Stone. And that's what basically happened was they formulated an approach to our language. And then what happens is they go and sell those things under their copyright. And what happened was we ended up suing them, saying like, hey, look, these are ours as per our initial contract. And their initial reaction to our settlement was, well, if you buy us out for another $1 million, we'll give you back your stuff.
That's not how contracts work.
And we said no. We ended up going to court and suing them. And get this, they had set a website up for us and everything. And it took a year or two court battle to get all our media, everything they made back. And then they sent it to us on an encrypted hard drive we couldn't open. And it was, we were like, what the hell? And then what happened was we asked for like the build for our website, and they sent it to us, but with missing some build documents that made it work. And we had to go hire like a forensic IT guy to not only open the drive, but to rebuild our website. And this is after we've already paid this company millions of dollars. And what's amazing is we're not the only story. This company, they actively are selling their services in other pueblos in New Mexico. And what happens is it goes even beyond the money thing. They literally try to like create a coup in my own community, because what happens is they pay off elders. and they pay the elders money to help them. And the elders, God bless them, they just think they're helping, you know. And this guy gives them a nice little check every month, and so it creates this partnership with them. You know, this gentleman's been paying us, we're doing what we need to do. And then when we wanted to kill this contract, he got this company and the gentleman that ran it, he got our group of elders to like literally like rise up and speak against our own tribal government. And we had to tell them very sadly, like, look, this guy is stealing from us. And it wasn't until we really laid it out for them that they kind of backed off, and we were able to do all the legal stuff. But yeah, you know, they were holding classes to teach Acoma, and it was $100 a class to come in and learn Acoma. And these classes were being held in Albuquerque, away from the Pueblo, and they were not sanctioned by our Pueblo at all. It was just this company. They had our stuff. They know how to teach our language, and hey, come on over. It's $100 for a session, and yeah,
Jace,
what and
maybe
now
you can see
Sam
the point
gave us.
here. Maybe you can see the point of like maybe this larger model that is the problem in this world, and so and how easy it is when you don't have a community that is used to communicating in a digital way and has no digital education, how vulnerable that ends up making you and how ripe for exploitation, which is why they have to be taught to
Yep.
Yeah.
create their own content. That's why this matters.
Oof.
So with that, Jace, that's the
No, I
long
needed it. And by the
prologue,
way, I
but now
really
you
appreciate you
understand.
taking the time to explain it to me. And, you know, as Sam will tell you, I'm kind of a reductionist, so I love hearing the whole thing so I can drill into the nuance. And the nuance that I heard here that got me
Totally,
the most
yeah.
interested, the most excited is basically what Sam just said. Is it seems like, you know, the Acoma community is, you know, coming together to, you know, really dive into the culture themselves and be able to share it themselves. And I guess what I'm most curious about is representation within the film industry, and how that's like kind of, what's the word, transformed over the years. Because you said something at the very beginning of your explanation that media was very taboo, right? And that you only saw one other person that was native within the film industry. So I guess my first question is, you know, has it transformed? Is, you know, are more native people becoming more interested in film? Are they participating? Are they learning? And most importantly, are they becoming profit participants in this enterprise?
Yes, and but a very few amount of them. You know, I think that right now, in terms of creation, our native people are probably in our like golden era of creating media. In terms of right now, we've hit some high water marks that have never been hit before. You have shows like Reservation Dogs on FX.
Yep.
You have shows like Dark Winds. I think it's on AMC. And
Another great
those,
show, actually. Both of them are
yeah,
kind of amazing. actually.
you have Taika Waititi, you know, who we consider a native person. He came through the Sundance Native Lab. And Taika, you know, a lot of people don't know that Taika has helped a lot of other young native people get into the upper above the line roles like directing, show running, you know, things like that. And so what's happened is we've hit these high water marks, but when you get down to like there's just a very few people that are native working in the industry still. The people that you see making it, man, they're all people that I grew up with. You know, the guys that are show running and directing for Reservation Dogs were all classmates, and they just kind of took a different route. For the longest time, they were like on the short film route and like poor and not making any money. And I kind of was like, I'm just gonna do production. And for the longest time, they were kind of stuck, and then all of a sudden it just blew up, and all of them are now in the DGA.
So cool.
You know, it's ridiculous. And they are coming back and putting money slowly into the greater community at whole, like as a whole. Like there's a gentleman named Black Horse Lowe. If you don't know him as a director, man, look him up. He's a great guy. He directed a couple episodes of Reservation Dogs, and he took his money. I've known this guy since we were in high school, and he took his money and put it all back into his own 35 millimeter short film that we did last year, and it was a full native cast and crew, and it was amazing. It's called Metal Belt. If you ever go out and look for it, it's on the short film circuit. But the guys like that. There's also Sydney Freeland that just did Echo. She's from our community out here in New Mexico, and she brought her film back, a film that's called Res Ball, that was produced by LeBron James, and they just shot it last year out here. And so slowly, as our people begin to get a footing in the larger industry, slowly it's coming back. And kind of, I feel like my job is to get these younger kids and other people that want in a working way to get in using, you know, the under the line stuff like production, to start to, you know, build so that when these people come back, they have a community of native people that can work on these films too, you know. And that's partially what there's some great groups out there, kind of like New Mexico Film Prize Junior, where they're trying to get young students into the filmmaking world. But you know, in communities like ours, it's a hard task, and so I'm just trying to get them used to the idea that they can even make their own movies, and you know, those shows that are out there on cable right now. You all would I mean, our young people at home have never seen themselves on the screen, you know? And so for a lot of them to see themselves represented is just it's like, wow, like I can be an actor. I never even thought about that, you know? And that's the amazing part of where we're at right now.
Another nerd question, and Sam probably already knows the answer to it. I'm a huge nerd when it comes to financial stuff. So is Acoma, is it a sovereign territory? And the reason why I'm asking is, like, how does something like, you know, film permits and the taxation and film credits work within the Acoma Nation? And I really just want to know, like, how that process works, because I've never, you know, talked to an expert like yourself in regards to this.
You know, well, it's interesting. Every pueblo, so every tribe is basically its own entity, so sovereign nation, right? So every tribe has its own permitting or doesn't have its own permitting process. And like, say the Pueblo of Acoma, for all these years of films coming in, we never had a permit process until I was in office.
That's cool.
And realized we needed one. And just this last week, I was out actually just like 2 days ago with the New Mexico Film Office, and we were creating a lookbook for productions of locations all around the state. And yesterday we were in the Navajo Nation, which is the largest reservation in the country. And they have a permitting office. They have a process to go through, which is a kind of a lengthy process. Their permitting structure is based on the size of your production. You know, how many people you're bringing in, and that's kind of how they base it. We were on the kind of the low end, and I believe our permit was for like 2 days, which gave us access to anywhere that was in the Navajo Nation, basically, that wasn't like on somebody's private land. It had to be like on open land. And I think we paid $2,500 for that permit. To give you an idea, Pueblo of Laguna down the road, Pueblo of Acoma, I believe that same sort of permit for us would have been like $500. But here's the thing, right? Like, the Navajo Nation is so large, and they give you this map of places you can go and you can't go. And numerous times we were out there in places where it shows us on the map we're not able to film. And there's like 40 tourists out there shooting with their drones and with their iPhones and with their like amateur photography. And I was telling our producer, like, this shot gets stolen all the time. There's a shot of this rock called Shiprock. And I mean, they just used it in the Jumanji movie with The Rock and Kevin Hart. And I know the shot they used, and it was quite definitely in the area where we were not supposed to be shooting. you know, so I don't know who manages these things. We never had a representative come out with us to like guide us. In the pueblos, they're going to stick somebody with you. That much like they stuck me with Sam, and but in some other communities they won't, and so you kind of have carte blanche. They just hope that you're going to abide by the rules. Now, on the other hand, as I found out in my pueblo, there are just a ton of productions out there that just come in and don't give a crap about permitting whatsoever. I had quite a few international like travelogue kind of companies just show up on our doorstep and start shooting, and I was like, what are you doing? And they were like, they were if they could steal the shot and get out of there, they were more than willing to do it. And then if they had to pay the fine, then they fought us about it. And it happens more than you think.
Now, how are you all managing? Because I know there's a secular and then there's a deeply religious aspect, right? At pretty much most of the pueblos. How is that conversation now being handled with basically, I mean, every kid's got a cell phone at this point, right? Every kid's shooting something. Social media is everywhere. So I think we're now hitting this weird inflection point. And frankly, the more I'm around it, I actually think the traditional people might be right about all of the technology stuff. So, but the question I have for you is like, how is this conversation getting managed now?
Yeah, it's the conversation was never happening for a long time, to be honest. And Sam, like, super thanks to you. You helped spur that conversation on in my community. And it's become a thing where we are trying to educate our community in two things. And that's educate our young folks about what is proper in our community to film and what they can't put out there in the world. And there's a lot of people out there, man. I totally understand. There's a lot of people out there. When I say that, they say like, "Oh, that's censorship," right? But you have what we call culture vultures. That's the term we use. And these people that kind of will go out and pick pieces of your culture that you've put online, and then you find themselves like, I'll give you a quick example. We've put our dances, some people have put our dances online, not sanctioned by the Pueblo. They've just filmed them and put them online. And so what's happened is, like, for instance, you've had a Boy Scout group. We fought with this Boy Scout group in Colorado who has seen our cultural dances and then decided that they're going to reinterpret them in their own way, right? And when we saw that, we were like, what the hell is going on? And their whole thing was like, well, you put it online. It's up online. Yeah, it's open to everybody. And so what we're trying to do now is teach our kids where that boundary lies, and then also teach our older folks, right, to not necessarily be afraid of media, but to also reiterate, our cultural beliefs in terms of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And usually that group would be like, just say no to everything. But over the past couple of years, like because of people like Sam in our community helping us out, they've seen our kids with cameras and they've seen our kids out making videos and they've seen the products of those videos, which is we're starting to create our own language videos, language materials. We're starting to record elder stories. And so they've seen the good side of that. And so they're becoming a little bit more okay with the kids running around creating media. But we've all had to sit down and have this tough conversation and really remind our kids constantly of what's appropriate to put online. In our pueblo, we're so far out in the middle of nowhere that we have the worst access to the internet ever. And so, in a weird way, because our kids can't really upload media, because the cell phone is so limited out there, that we have kind of this natural boundary, right? But there's a lot of other communities closer to metropolitan centers that have full access to high-speed internet in their community. And so they are also trying to teach young people, like, yeah, go have fun, make the TikTok videos, but don't make them in this Kiva area that's religious, and that's what we're trying to teach them.
Yeah, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm understanding that there is a generational divide that's actually a little bit slower, if you will, but we've all experienced, and I find that fascinating. And actually, it's kind of romantic if you think about it, how your culture is taking precedence over everything. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And yeah, I'm just, Sam, you want to comment on that? And try to, summarize what I'm trying to say better? Because for me, like you kind of hit me in the heartstrings, if being honest. Like, I was like, that's kind of a beautiful thing. That's not a bad thing. That's awesome.
I think we actually have quite a bit to learn in this country around like things that are sacred and should be private, and things that are within a certain group of people that don't really need to be shared or should have permission in terms of being shared. I don't think the entire world in a lot of ways has earned the right to come and take certain things from people that they've spent millennia managing just fine on their own, and those things should be, there should be at least permission, involved in some of this stuff. But then the flip side that I'll comment on is, for people who know nothing about this, Jonathan, and are like, whatever, it's just a meme, right? So they come in and the question becomes like, what would you want the line to be as really the bearer of this? Or like, where does cultural appropriation start and stop?
That's a tough question, right?
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah. I can't. Yeah. It's a question that I think that, we all, as media makers, and especially as media makers in this cultural world of ours, not only, and this is a question that not only goes for Native folks, but the Hispanic community too, is like, where is that line? And for myself, I grew up very non-traditional, and there was a point of me years ago that would have been like, there is no line. Like, let's put it all out there. And as I've grown and been placed in the role of protecting my community, then I realized like that there is this line, and for me, it's like if I feel that it was something for ages in our community, there's never been allowed cameras whatsoever, like in some of these cultural times, and so it's kind of like I feel like if it's one of these times, then those are absolute no's in terms of where that line draws. But it changes for every community. Like, for instance, there's a pueblo like in Arizona called Hopi, and they're just as old as our pueblo and just as traditional, but they have no problem recording a very traditional dance or ceremony and posting it online, like, and so for every community it's a little different. So that's a very hard question to answer, and I think the best thing we can do is to be able to get our kids and anybody in our community, not just the kids, but man, adults too, like, to get them to really think for a moment before they go and post something for the whole world to see. And it's that idea of um, maybe empowering them, or at least making them aware through kind of like media literacy of what the impacts of them doing something like that may be. And so you're just hoping that nowadays they take a moment and say, does this really need to be online, or should I just share this directly to my cousin or my auntie or whoever, right? Instead of putting it on YouTube for millions of people to see. And yeah, that's where we're at. One of the weird things that happened, we didn't really mention it, but during COVID, this all came to a head for us, because during COVID, our village shut down. And so there was nobody allowed in or out of these villages. And our cultural practices for those 2 years went dormant. You got to think, like, the only time that that's happened has been twice in our livelihood, and that was the Spanish flu and the Inquisition of the Spanish, right? That was the last time our cultural stuff stopped, and COVID shut it down for us. And our governor, usually how our governor uh, gets information to our people is directly. Like, he will go out and talk at the church services on Sunday or at a community function or whatever. And he wasn't able to do that. And through the equipment that Sam had helped us with prior to that, and with the knowledge of me and a couple other production people that were from the community, we went in and we have a day called Feast Day in our pueblo, and it's the celebration of our pueblo. It's like our birthday for the community, and it's a huge day, deeply religious day, and we decided to put it online. And that day, we went out to the village. This is in the height of COVID. We had all our tribal leadership be able to talk on camera directly to our folks. We shared the link. Only to members on a join only Facebook page. So that's how we managed who was able to see it. But of course, the link went worldwide within seconds. Like, I could tell we were watching our numbers, and we were like maybe at like 2,000 people watching. And then somehow somebody shared it like worldwide. And next thing you know, we had like 10,000 people watching. And we had our dances, our traditional dances. We videotaped them, put them online. And then what we also did was, with the ability, we had people text in messages, and then we put them on the screen, like messages to their community, stay strong, I miss you, that sort of things. And they played, and it was the first ever time in my life, and in a lot of other people's, we broke ground. It's the first time you ever had a governor use media to connect to his people. And it was an amazing thing. We talked about it for a year later. It struck that sort of chord. And our governor, I remember telling us, like, even a year later, that he would still get emails from people during COVID, like Native people in Wisconsin that somehow got the link, and they don't even know us, but they were just like, their culture had stopped too. And just to hear like songs they were saying, people were like, people replayed it hundreds of times. And it was like, we would get comments like, oh, I just wanted to hear the drum songs while I cooked or something like that. And they would replay this video. We did it twice. We did it for that time, and we did it for Christmas. and those were the only times we've done it. But it changed the whole landscape of how our pueblos use media. Once that happened, all these other governors in all these other communities started to do little video podcasts for their community to get information out. And now we've changed that entire paradigm where now it's not a big thing for a governor of a community to get online and make a little video talking, like giving an update to his constituents. And, it's using media like that as a tool that both is not only great for our community, but also shows our elders in our community that we're being appropriate with it.
It sounds like intimacy is the root of everything, right? And finding that line where the intimacy is crossed and exposed too far, right? But in this particular instance, that intimacy that was so needed, like media was able to, give that back to the community. And it's really cool to, find an inciting incident in the real world. And it sounds like this has progressed your culture, culture internally, and has allowed media to grow. And I think that's fantastic.
Well, and what I think's cool about it too is, I think it's far more interesting to use media as a means of humans connecting and interacting. It's a far more interesting model of bringing people together versus, I think, what it is now, which is largely for commercial or me purposes.
Yeah.
Like, you were solving a problem with it, and it's a big problem with people missing each other and not being able to connect across long distances and filling an actual gap. And for me, that is like way more interesting and way more compelling than just about any use case I can think of in the modern.
It really has been. And, Jason, exactly what you said. It propelled our community into a whole other understanding of how to use this media. And, it's, I would say, Sam, you'd be amazed. I would think that the level of taboo-ness that you experienced when you come back and visit us again, you'll see that I think a lot of the community is a lot more willing to engage, and it's been very helpful in terms of now we have their trust. And hopefully we can continue to grow young people we have great artists, amazing artists, and these young kids just need opportunities. That's really what it is. I grew up without a camera in my hand. I thought that was the farthest thing ever. I went to a school where we had no resources. The whole reason that I went to a journalism school because there was no film schools at the time. And I wanted to get my hands on a camera. My parents couldn't afford a camera. And so I waited till I was like a sophomore in college to begin to even learn how to shoot with a camera, right? And I have kids that are in 6th grade, 5th grade now making videos, creating scripts and doing little horror movies.
That's awesome.
In the Pueblo, and I think it's amazing.
So we're just about out of time, but I got one last question for you to take us out with, which is, look, what you just described is from where we started in the podcast, which is just complete and total exploitation, to you growing up, wanting to be able to do a thing, but not seeing anyone like yourself doing that thing, to now your kids. And I met Avery and and this kid's like a prodigy, and to now having kids who are mastering this, right? Mm-hmm. So to start from the absolute bottom in terms of like how media in this industry has treated you, where for you, having watched all of this, do you want to see it go? What's the dream now?
Oh man, my dream is to ultimately, I would love to see our Pueblos represent themselves as a film office as a whole, so that we don't have to worry about each community having to deal with these groups coming in with the film industry. The film industry in New Mexico is not going away. It's only growing. And we just need to empower our community in terms of how do we manage these people and our resources. That's the big thing that I'd like to see. Now, beyond that is the idea of allowing my community members to grow and know that they have a place in this if they want to. Like you said, Sam, so many kids, when you break out this equipment, they're like, "Are you rich? Like, what is?" Like, I've done, it's unfathomable for a lot of them to be in this world, and I want to show them that, look, like, you can do this. You can go and create movies, and you can make all these things. A lot of them are already, and they don't even know it. They're out there using TikTok and using apps to make videos, and they don't know that it's only one more step beyond that. And I really just want to see our people begin to grow in how they use it and use it effectively. Like I said, there was a part of me that a long time ago was all about like the film world and the film industry and like, yeah, let's make native movies. And I still love that. But I feel more than anything now, our communities need to understand that this is a tool, and then this is a tool that we can use to continue our traditions and our cultures on beyond, many years beyond now. And once we get an idea of that we own this tool and that we can own what we create using it, I feel like that'll really help us, move our communities forward. And as that happens, I'm sure we'll find more of our community members in roles in this industry as well.
So I'm going to leave this. I'll sign us out. It's the perfect way for you to take us out. And then I'm going to leave the last word for Jace. But I'll just say this, which is, if you think this podcast is called ELAV8, right? The idea is to, help people elevate and raise the bar and step up into what they want to be and what they want to do. Yeah. And, everything you just said, what you just described, it's exactly in tune with that. And what the work you've been doing is inspiring, man. So, I'm just saying, I'm looking forward to coming back to Sky City. And, the way you have like stepped up and solved a huge problem and elevated your people is amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't even know how I follow that last word, because you even brought the name of the podcast into the through line of the whole entire episode. So, I mean, I'm not going to even try to top it. I'm just going to end it with, Jonathan, it was such a pleasure speaking with you and sitting here listening to your story, just feeling your passion come through the microphone. It's really a gift. And, I hope, people who watch this gain as much inspiration as I did just being able to listen to you. And, I can't wait to see the next generation of filmmakers that are coming, from your community, because the work you're doing and how you're elevating that community is truly inspiring. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching the ELAV8 podcast. Peace.